Hello and welcome to the Childcare Business Coach Podcast. My name is Evelyn Knight, and I am excited for this interview. I have been talking with my guests. If you are watching the YouTube or one of the many places I stream, you can see that I'm not alone here today. But if you're listening on the podcast, welcome. And we have an exciting episode for you today. I am really excited after talking to you guys behind the scenes. I'm really excited about this episode of the podcast. I'm here with Daniel Andrews and Sasha Reiss from Playground, which is a software company in early childhood education. Behind the scenes, I'm always asking people what makes you different. And the behind the scene conversation we just had has gotten me super excited. But before we get into that, I'm going to have each of you introduce yourself. So Daniel, you're first on my camera view. So go ahead and introduce yourself first.
Cool. Thank you for having us here today. So I'm Daniel. I'm the founder and CEO at Playground, co-founders alongside with Sasha. Just some background. So we're an app and a website for managing childcare businesses. And we got our start in this by actually building for my mom. She ran a center for 26 years. She just retired recently, but she was the director of a school with around 350 kiddos. And over the summers, I would go and work there while I was in high school and college, and you would see floor-to-ceiling file cabinets. All of the children would be bringing their backpacks with lunches, and that's how they'd get checks also. They'd have the checks next to their lunch boxes. The teachers would collect their checks and put them in a central office. All of the babysitters and nannies would be manually entered into the system in order to track who's coming and going. And there was no centralized way to manage everything. And so we built Playground in order to help my mom in her work in early child education, but then also the rest of my family. So my aunt runs a chain of schools, my grandma is a preschool administrator, and my sister is an occupational therapist in childcare. And so this work was really born out of a need that we saw in our family and grew really quickly from there to friends of friends, and then we're across the entire country.
That's amazing. And as you were telling me that before, I realized ECE is literally in your DNA. Literally. And people don't understand, I told you guys, my background is in neuropsych, my educational background. I never actually worked in the field, but basically it's those generational things are really actually tied into our neural networks. So it's fascinating your background and how it's kind of come full circle. So Sasha, go ahead and introduce yourself for us.
Yeah, well, although I'm not blood related to Daniel and his family, I do consider his mom a second mom. My background is in building products and design, and I went to high school with Daniel, and his brother, who's our third co-founder, Josh, is my best friend. And so we've known each other for quite a while. And so when they came to me with the opportunity to build for their mom and for their family, it was a no-brainer to combine kind of their, family's passion with our skill set.
That is awesome that you guys have been together so long too. So Sasha, so you kind of knew them from high school, then you knew you were kind of involved in this family who was EC owners. It is different. I know because I am a childcare center owner, and I can just tell you, for example, my youngest son is 20 years old, and he had some friends come over yesterday, and these boys have been coming to my house, since they were 10. So I've got this young man coming into my house, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So I'm just like, hello, but we're preschool people. That's how we are, right? So you probably have experienced some of that, the mom preschool owner type
1,000%. It's one of the warmest, most the bubbliest people you'll ever meet. I have so many friends that work in so many other industries where it's so hard to have and foster these kind of relationships. And obviously people in our space, they're caring for, they're doing childcare, which is such a you're dealing with kids all day. And so I think naturally people who gravitate towards the space are just so kind, so warm-hearted, and so it makes it a real pleasure to build in it.
Yes, so you do have a much deeper understanding too of early childhood. I think a lot of software companies out there are just software companies, and I talk to a lot of. It's amazing to me sometimes how many are out there, and I talk to a lot of developers. I get solicited by a lot of developers, which I don't always let on my podcast. And I was telling you guys before we started recording that I did let you on because you were referred to me, but I'm very picky about who I let on, because a lot of people see childcare and they see $1 billion industry. They know that there is massive amount of opportunity, right? But they don't get the industry. They don't understand our hearts. They don't understand who we are. So as you were telling me your story, and I mentioned to you the connection I had, and I'm like, but what makes you different? Why is it that you reside? Like, why were you referred to me? And it was like, oh, I get it, because you guys actually really get this industry. And as I was telling you, Daniel, I know as the mother of 2 boys myself, you got to see something that a lot of people don't get to see. You got to see what it was like for your mom after hours. And a lot of times we owners have to go in and we put our boss face on and we smile. And when we get home, we may fall apart. And we are exhausted. We are there on the weekends. We're doing those other things, right? And you actually grew up in that. So that gives you such a different view than any other software owner I've ever met, I have to say, where you really intimately get this industry. And you know what's ironic is that I work with people all over the world. I still have clients here in the United States who are still using notebooks. They really are. They're instead of QuickBooks or anything, they're still using notebooks. So you were also saying that you did work in the childcare center summers and when you were in between college. So you actually have that hands-on knowledge of the processes inside the center as well. So tell me a little bit about that too.
Yeah. So, I mean, while I was in middle school, high school, working alongside the kids, that was like the day-to-day, helping set up the different tables for PlayStations in order to, track all of the curriculum and lesson plans. At some points, I was actually helping develop some of that curriculum and lesson plans. I got my units in California. You need 12 units to be left alone with children. And so I actually got my units while I was working there in the summers. So that way I could actually help develop some of those lesson plan and curriculums and be kind of an integral part of that classroom and really understand what it takes to, develop and nurture these children that you're working with. It's not just daycare where you're taking care of the day, you're childcare. You're really caring for these children, trying to nurture them and trying to help them grow. And so that was really important to me, was that, we're cultivating this learning and this education. However, it was the technologist in me. My background before I started building Playground was helping startups go 0 to 1, building out brand new companies to solve some of those big pain points. And there are a lot of pain points in childcare. Not that software can solve all of them, but there's a lot of things that can be in this day and age. So my mom collecting 350 checks from families on a monthly basis, like what happens if a check didn't come in? That's somebody's salary, essentially, that was going to be missing if you had like these delinquent payments or bad debt. And so I knew that there was at least a way to do it on the admin side, on the administrative, like day-to-day tasks or monthly tasks, that we could improve operations and help out in the daily aspect there and like really go and solve those problems. Not just check a box that we offer some functionality, but really go in and solve problems in the way that I know that they're experienced in the actual childcare setting.
Yeah, and you've got a front row seat at what those problems really are, and the problems that honestly stole your mom's time, right? And now what you do is basically a lot of those time tasks that would eat up our programs, like signing in children. I mean, and people don't understand the amount of time they're losing by something as simple as checking in and checking out, right? But when you automate all of that, it really, really does free up the human capital to be able to be with the children. And that's what's the most important thing, right? So that is awesome. And then Sasha, tell me about your, I know before we were recording, your education background is, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I went to school, I went to the University of Southern California in Los Angeles, and I actually studied something completely different. I studied art history. So I'm a full like humanities buff.
Yay!
Really?
Yeah,
we're a rare breed, I feel like.
Yeah, very rare breed, right? Yes, I did too, like right out of high school. That's awesome.
So that's kind of like academically where I spent a lot of my time, but in my free time, I really enjoyed designing and building beautiful apps. And so kind of honed this skill, which later turned into a full-on profession, building apps. And Dan and Josh are world-class engineers, and so it was a no-brainer to combine forces and build this, working platform now that powers thousands of centers across the country.
Yeah. Well, that's actually interesting. It makes sense then why building apps was actually good, because your appreciation for art is going to help make those right. I love that so much because that was my first college major was art history too, and just such a huge passion. And you don't even realize how that does spill into your future life. I can tell you now, for me, 30 years later, it does, because you get that eye for detail. You see things that people don't see. And even if it's the flow, the construct, it really does make a huge, huge difference. So that is all you'll see, it'll be very useful.
I think the thing that I always take away is the critical thinking aspect of it, where it's like, it doesn't necessarily matter the actual topic of what you're learning. It's the ability to think critically and to write well, which applies to anything that you do. So that was definitely like a big thing that I attributed my at least like my academic past to.
Absolutely. That's awesome. And now I'm going to brag about you guys a little bit. I'm super impressed to know that you guys are a part of Forbes 30 under 30. So that is a huge bragging point. Can you guys tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. So last year we were honored to be on the list for the Forbes 30 under 30 in the education category. So it was just, nothing really happened. It was cool to be recognized for the hard work. And I know it's like, we're the ones on it, but really all the credit goes to our super hardworking team. Without them, we wouldn't be able to provide the care and the service to our ECE customers and partners. And so, yeah, I think it was just cool for everyone to see a little bit of recognition.
That's awesome. No, and you guys deserve it. You deserve to own that recognition. That is just amazing. What an accomplishment. So it's a big deal too. I mean, if you looked at the statistics, how many people actually make it there, right? That is a pretty cool big deal. So you guys should be very proud of yourselves. So tell me a little bit more about your software. How do you see yourself different than the other options out there? And you guys know there's some giants out there that dominate the industry, which I used to be a part of. And then as you get to know a little bit more that's out there, you realize maybe those giants aren't the best. So tell me a little bit about how you compare.
Yeah, I just want to start with like philosophy. I'm not going to name any names, but my family was obviously using a system before they were using Playground. But something to note is they were using those systems and there are still so many tasks that were done like paper and pencil or manually, and there's still so much time to be saved. So one thing we kind of philosophically took from the very beginning was, our goal isn't to just check a bunch of boxes and say that we have a lot of things, but it's to build a great product and process and experience that makes your parents excited to use our software, the staff excited to like actually go and enter it and use it and communicate with families. It shouldn't be a chore. It shouldn't be something that crashes. It needs to be something that actually functions the way you expect it to. And then on the administrative side, making sure that like we actually fill the need that we're supposed to fill. It's not just that we have this, it's that like we actually go deep. Once we had that original stuff, we started really focusing on how can we grow your revenue? How can we build up your center? How can we make you perform in a way that many other industries have kind of gone through this digital transformation? But in a lot of cases, we see the early child education sector being left behind. And that's what got us really excited at the opportunity, but also really upset and mad that it felt like we were kind of being left behind. And so it was kind of both of those things that pulled us into starting to function like, how can we, there's open spots. How can we fill that up with drop-in care? My mom used to have stacks of paper taller than I was processing enrollment applications. But you can walk into a modern tech office and you see no paper, no file cabinets, no printers, no fax machines. And so we're like, we could definitely bring this to early child education. And so, we developed like a paperwork feature to track all of that. We have like a whole enrollment functionality that's able to do all your paperwork, student information, staff information, set up all the billing, all the scheduling all at once. So all of these like very process-driven tech companies that we have experience working in, like we can bring the same technology, same process, same like gains in labor to childcare as well, and really free up people to work within the classroom with the families rather than on these administrative tasks.
I think what you see also in practice is obviously there's a lot of existing processes and workflows that people expect to kind of have solved by technology, which we absolutely have. It's kind of table stakes, but our other piece here when it comes to philosophy is constant iteration. And so what you see from our team's output on any given week is oftentimes more than what a lot of the other companies in the space will put out in an entire quarter or, in half a year. And so on any given week, we are constantly iterating. We are constantly talking to our customers, constantly asking for feedback, constantly implementing requests, and furthering that use case to make sure that we are really solving the use case at the deepest level.
One final thing here. This is a fun anecdote, but one thing that I think is frustrating for some people is support. And I have a question, how does this work? And getting a response. And so having sat in my mom's director's office, seeing frustrated or angry parents or angry staff that don't know how the system works, and then they couldn't get a hold of anybody. And so the way that we run our support function is you should be able to answer your question while that angry parent's still in there or angry staff member or frustrated staff member's there. And so our support time is 30 to 45 seconds. We'll get in contact with a live human at all times, and we'll make sure that your questions are heard, listened to, and answered. And so that way we're able to get you the success or support that you need.
That is fascinating. Wow, that is amazing. That's wonderful. That is huge. I agree with you 100%, because I just went through that myself. So that is a big deal at my own childcare center. So wow, I am actually really impressed with that. So I know before we start recording, I was talking to you guys a little bit too about how you guys also have another secret weapon that you don't even know you have. And part of what you just described really speaks to what I was talking about, where normally this industry, you're going to notice that if you look at the demographics, it is going to be heavily owned by Gen Xers, right? And even some baby boomers are still owning, Gen Xers are owning, and we are moving into a new era. But the Gen Xers, we have a hard time sometimes moving into this new era. But you guys are positioned perfectly because you are at this forefront. Your generations are at this forefront of embracing things like the AI movement, embracing this technology, and EC has to move in that direction. But that's probably also why we see it moving so slowly, because I talk to hundreds of owners every month, and there is huge resistance in this moving forward, becoming more like a doctor's office. You go into a doctor's office and there's no paperwork anymore, right? The filing cabinets are gone now. And you guys are 100% right. We do need to move into this era in early childhood education. So I think that that's where one of your guys' superpowers is. Your mom was a center owner. You kind of get how she thinks. And so you speak our language a little bit differently than anything else I've experienced. And for me, as this Gen Xer myself, it doesn't scare me so much. When you guys describe it, right? It doesn't sound like, oh my gosh, it's going to come take over. So I think that is definitely something for my listeners to really think about if they're thinking about changing software or just really embracing what does technology have to offer our centers, aligning with people who are more up to date than we're always, like my generation is willing to be, is a great idea. And the support you guys will lend, I'll be honest with you, when I'm looking at changing, freaks me out. I've had the same software for 17 years and it freaks me out to change because I don't know what my learning curve is going to be, right? But if I know I have that kind of support, then maybe I can handle a change. So
yeah, so that's actually a really common question we get. And so two pieces here that how we answer that. First, my grandma is a preschool administrator. She's in her 70s. She got her first smartphone. She got an iPhone when she was, 2020 something. It's a very recent development for her.
Yes.
And so every time we develop a feature, we do what's called the grandma test. Can my grandma figure out how to use this without us telling her what to do?
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
That's one of the ways that we are trying to make sure that it's that user friendly and that simple to pick up. Obviously, we're still there to answer questions or anything else that might come up because oftentimes life's a little bit more complicated than that. But that's kind of the mental framework that we use. Can my grandma figure this out? If no, we go back to the drawing board, make things simpler, add more helper messaging in order to figure that out. But on the transition side, we do everything for you. We know that's a one-time cost. It's a large mental cost also, even if it's not that much time. And so we're happy to give you a white glove onboarding where we'll take all of your old information. We've had people send us literally phone message pictures of their attendance rosters where we can then go upload stuff for them. But the task on the actual childcare owner or childcare director is very, very minimal. We'll do all of that for you as part of that onboarding process. Get all of your students in there, all of your staff in there, set up all of your classrooms, set up all of your paperwork and your enrollment listings, whatever else you're looking to use through Playground. We will manage all of that transition period for you.
Oh, that is wonderful. And for those of you who are interested in getting a hold of Playground, we will have all of their contact information in the show notes. So go ahead and check them out. I highly recommend it. I think you guys are definitely going to be one of the major powerhouses we see coming out of early childhood education, which is much needed. If one of my missions is really to revolutionize this industry, it is time for us to kind of get out of the old and to really revolutionize and be on board with the way the world is changing. And it's something I'm super excited about. But as you guys probably know from working in this, there's a lot of resistance. But I think with new up and coming philosophies and even what you guys have to offer, it is going to be awesome for the ECE revolution that is coming. So do you guys have any final thoughts you'd like to leave my audience with?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think no more bragging from us or anything like that. I think whenever we chat with folks who are doing really cool work in the space, we always like to express our gratitude, not only to you and your team, but also to your listeners and to the ECE directors, owners, teachers, people who are actually in the classrooms, doing the hard work, such a crucial industry. And so really we're honored to be a small part in the space. And obviously we're very excited about what's to come.
Well, thank you. I think if I can make a prediction, you guys are going to be a very big part of the space in not too long. So thank you guys so much for joining me. And again, for those of my listeners that are so loyal, I am so thankful to you. And make sure you like and subscribe and leave me a review. I really, really do appreciate those reviews. And that is your way that you can thank me for putting this free content out to you guys every week. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.